Well, okay, so do we want to just do it this way where we have our playoff picks, or do we want to get to other stuff first? All right, let's do the playoff picks first. Go ahead.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
So I think we're both in the same spot where we're trying to figure out who could be a fun fourth team. Because if you went just purely on like who we expect it to be, it's going to be Ohio State, Alabama, and probably Georgia and Clemson, because Georgia doesn't have to play Alabama in the regular season. And you'd think that the SEC championship game, if both those teams are undefeated, they'll both probably get in, right? So trying to figure out who the fourth team's going to be. I don't want to go chalk. So I think my fourth team, I'm going to kick out Georgia. They'll probably still make it, but I'm going to kick them out. I'm going to keep Clemson. My fourth team is going to be Oklahoma. Would you like my case? Would you like my case?
Yeah, because, well, I mean, look, when I went into this, first of all, I can't believe there's this little parity for this long. All right. So for whatever people want to argue, like, I don't like, it's kind of like the the Eastern and Western Conference thing in the NBA. For the longest time, we're like, hey, should they just take the top 16 teams and say, screw the conferences because the West was so much better than the East? And I was like, look, things are cyclical. They'll figure it out. Like, don't start making grand sweeping changes to the entire format. And then it went on for like 15 years. I was like, maybe we do need to tweak some things. Go ahead.
I think the parity, though, is going to fix itself in the next few years, not because of NIL. Everyone's like, NIL is going to fix the parity. I think the parity is going to fix because you finally have what seems like some strong coaches in important places. Like Cristobal at Miami is very important. I don't know if Napier is going to be good at Florida, but let's just say he is. Sark and Venables in Oklahoma and Texas is important. And Lincoln Riley at USC is important, because the reason why there's been no parity, or a lot of the reason why there's been no parity, is Alabama and Clemson and these schools have been able to just pick off talent from California or Texas. So instead of saying the NIL is going to fix it, root for strong head coaches in important areas that will hopefully stabilize where all the talent goes. Because if Alabama doesn't get those extra 5 stars or 4 stars from California and Texas, if those guys stay in the region, it will kind of flatten out on its own.
I just can't believe that you have this kind of Bama run. And honestly, we'd be talking about Clemson's run historically if it weren't for Bama. Like, you know, what Clemson has done, obviously last year was a disappointment. We're going to get to that a little bit because of the offense and everything. The NIL thing, I've heard it argued for parity, or it's just going to be like, hey, the big boys are just going to do it right and do it better than everybody else. So it's not going to be parity. I think the scary thing is when you look at the transfer portal and how much it's opened up. Like with Georgia Tech's running back decides that I'm going to go ahead and play at Alabama. That feels so incredibly unfair.
Right. And that's the same thing I'm talking about. Like when CJ Stroud goes from California to Ohio State, or Tua goes from, Hawaii to Alabama. Like if those guys go stay at home in USC and it kind of flattens out.
You're right. If Lincoln's there and not Helton, then some DJ, Tua, certainly. Like there was this, wait a minute, how's Clemson and Alabama ended up with these guys that should be playing at SC?
Right. And if Texas can get a little bit stronger, like those Texas players will start staying home a little bit more. So I think it's in Miami, I think Cristobal, what he did at Oregon recruiting wise was the best. He surpassed what Chip did at Oregon recruiting wise.
Definitely recruiting wise.
Forget the how they actually performed in big games, because that's a different conversation. But Cristobal is going to recruit the state of Florida better than it's been recruited in a long time. So all these things, like if you're rooting for parity in college football, root for coaches, strong coaches, to be in key places and have success. That's how we get there.
So you got Bama.
Yep. Ohio State. Ohio State. Clemson, because I just think the ACC is that weak, and Clemson, like I think even if they have the one bad DJ game to then make the switch. So I think DJ will be better, but they obviously have a freshman now that's going to be awesome. And then I have Oklahoma because I think, one, Dylan Gabriel's underrated. Like he's a very good quarterback who you would think would turn the ball over a ton in UCF's offense. Didn't. Like he's pretty good with the ball. And I think Venables, like the idea that Oklahoma can't play defense is more of a new thing. When he was there before, they were playing good defense. When he got to Clemson, they went from a bad defense to a great defense. So I think he will stabilize it. I think they will. The Big 12 has some good teams this year. Like Kansas State's going to be a good team. Obviously, Texas. Everyone's got Texas as their dark horse.
I feel like Oklahoma State's always like pain in the ass.
Baylor's
Right.
got a lot. Obviously,
Baylor's got a good quarterback.
Yeah. But I just think Oklahoma, like what Venables will be able to do with that defense, and not the Oklahoma. We had a couple years where Oklahoma would have a great defensive game and be like, oh shit, is Oklahoma back? No, I'm talking about consistently good defense. That will be my pick. So Oklahoma's my fourth team because I didn't want to go straight chalk.
I didn't want to do the same chalk thing either. It was really hard. So I have Bama and Clemson. Some Bama notes here.
They're going to be awesome. They're going to also be
their edge guys are going to be horrifying. Go ahead.
And the crazy thing about Bama this year, I think like they're going to run the ball like they used to when they would win, whatever it was 10 years ago, where they would just fucking shove it down your throat. And they have the Heisman quarterback, to like a nice addition there.
Yeah, and I like Young a lot because of his poise. I thought the Auburn game, despite the fact you're like, are you really going to lose to Auburn? Like what he did towards the end there, his command of things, like that extra little juice that you want out of your quarterback who calms everybody else down and says, I got this. Like he already had that last year. And, the receiver depth takes a hit based on what you had with the best version when they were healthy with Jameson and Mechie, which was not the case towards the end of the season. So it's not going to be the same there, but I just think their defense is so loaded. Battle, they bring in Ricks from LSU, who was actually awesome for them at corner in an LSU stretch where it's been pretty disappointing after the title. So I'm with you on Bama. Ohio State, I can't find somebody outside of the Big Ten. I just can't. Nope. I can't. I tried. I go through it all. Now, I'd say this. The offense we know is going to roll. It's insane. They're stacked. Maybe Stroud wins the Heisman. The defense, though, last year, like they can switch out the defensive coordinator, bring in Jim Knowles, like anybody who can consistently compete on defense in the Big 12, like you're going, all right, bring that guy in. And by the way, former head coach of the Big Red, Cornell. I don't know if you knew that.
Never heard of it.
It's pronounced Colonel.
Yeah.
So they bring in him, and then this is kind of what happens. Every time a contender brings in the new coordinator, it's like, man, like it's never a negative. It's always a positive. It's insane. Now, I'm pro Knowles as far as that part. I don't know if they have the talent though, and that was the frustrating thing for Ohio State. If you look at their front seven defensively over the years, that's where Ohio State to me was like the difference maker, and they didn't have that group. They've got the one kid. Jesus Christ.
You're right. You look for the name, but you're right. The Bosa brothers, Chase Young, like whenever they had those guys who would just be absolute game wreckers, that's when they would go to the next level.
Yeah, like I was looking at the pro prospect stuff. Zach Harrison, the 6'6" kid. Like he's the only one that I saw on like a pre-watch list. Now, granted, there's other 5-star defensive linemen that they'll have in, and now maybe all of a sudden it's fine and it's their time and they're a year out from draft eligibility. But I still don't think that front is as talented as it has been, where Ohio State's just putting another top 10 pick in there, or at least a first rounder. So, but even having said all that, I think their offense is so far superior to any other group when you think about running back, number one receiver, tight end, and quarterback. Like, I don't know who matches that in the Big Ten. Well, the answer is no one does, and that's why I'm picking them.
Yeah. Okay. And then so you have Clemson, you have Alabama, you have Ohio State, and are you going to do something crazy with your fourth?
Yeah, I'm going to go Georgia hangover, and I'm going to go A&M.
Oh, okay. So that
I don't know. Right. I don't know where the Georgia loss is coming from. I wonder if like all the stuff, like the Stetson Bennett story is kind of funny because it's like, man, everybody doubted this guy. It's like, well,
yeah,
I think it's okay. Like we didn't think he was as good as the NFL guys or the guys that would win a Heisman. Like that's all. Not a big deal.
There was a moment in that national championship game when he had that fumble where it's like, oh boy, like this is way too big for Stetson Bennett. He obviously, came back and made some big throws. But so my only question with the Texas A&M and Alabama, so how's it going to shake out? Because if Alabama beats Texas A&M is not going to be, let's say Alabama runs a table, Texas A&M is not going to be the SEC title game. So Danny Cannell just punched his wall when he heard what you just said, because you're now going to have a team that's not even in the title game go to the college football playoff.
Yeah, something really stupid would have to happen with Georgia, where they're going to have a loss and then they're going to have to lose to Alabama in the SEC title game.
Right. And A&M is going to have to play close in Tuscaloosa. One of those games that we love where it's like, oh, I almost wanted to pick
good loss, good loss. Look out for that team loss.
Part of me, I wanted to make the case for Oregon. I don't think they have enough. I'm very excited to see Bo Nix, Pac-12 After Dark. Like, he was meant for that because he's always good for one game where it's like, what the fuck just happened? Bo Nix. Oregon having a good loss against Georgia week 1 could be big for them. You know, like if they lose by 3 to Georgia, everyone, in November would be like, well, look at Oregon. They played Georgia real tough. That's a good team.
How weird is it going to be when they're doing Oregon Bo Nix highlights and then they can't show his dad in an Auburn uniform anymore? Our TV, do you think TV broadcasts, we don't even want to put this game on TV because then we can't talk about his dad playing?
Yes, Bo Nix, this is the year. He's putting it all together. It's going to happen.
Yeah, the irony being that I can't believe he beat Oregon when he first played that first game where you were like, what the hell is going on here? And then it worked. And you're like, this is weird. It was like Tebow in the NFL. You're like, wait, this worked?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's true. I had Oregon in that game. I was so mad. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Why did that pass work? Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, he has a few of those moments every year. That touchdown pass he threw against LSU last year. Like, he is built for Pac-12 After Dark. He's built to go to Arizona State at 11 p.m. and make a stupid play out of his ass, and everyone be like, wow, Bo Nix.
Yeah, he was 13 of 31 against Oregon in that game, his first game as a starter. Okay, so the other thing I have with A&M here is not only all the talent that's coming in there, because you're like, what do you even talk about the quarterback? Haynes King was going to be the starter. He gets hurt in the Colorado game. Calzada comes in. Calzada, who lost the starting job to Finley at Auburn, which I still can't make sense because I watch Finley enough to be like, wait, this guy's good enough that he's going to be starting somewhere else at Auburn. I don't know. Calzada had that unbelievable game against Alabama. It's just not really who he was.
Right.
It's not really who he was. Haynes is the athlete. Like, this kid is dynamic. Now, granted, he got his leg absolutely crunched because he was running around out there like crazy. So I'm going with A&M losing to Bama and then missing out on having to play anybody in an SEC title game. Georgia having some weird loss, just one weird, hey, we think we're awesome because, this group won a title last year, even though half the defense, if not all the defense, is gone. But they still have plenty of guys that are still NFL draft picks on that side of it. The tight end room is insane. We'll see if Eric Gilbert, the LSU transfer, ends up being as good as he looked as a freshman, but Bowers is good enough so even though I like a lot of the Georgia stuff, I was trying to do something a little different, so I'm going to go ahead and pick A&M as my 14.
I like it, and I also like the Haynes King is an important thing to mention. I like Max Johnson, the backup now, I think he is an upgrade obviously in backup, and if Haynes King goes down again, you're not going to have that crazy drop off where how the hell are we going to win games and move the ball?
Yeah, right. Because Calzado, as you watched it, if you watch them all season, you're like, I can't believe this guy had some of the throws he had against Alabama.
Right.
Just sometimes a college kid will have that night where you're like, whoa, is this real? And then, you watch the other games and you go, I don't think it is. All right. So not a ton that's different there. Let's just jump back on Clemson real quick because you mentioned Klubnik there, the freshman. Bruce Feldman was writing up Clemson, and he brought him up as potentially replacing Ugalele. And I thought, Bruce is pretty plugged in with the Elite 11 guys. I thought that was the kind of nugget where, since I know how tight he is, and I went to the Elite 11 thing to watch this kid throw, and he was pretty impressive. But again, it's drills and cool. But I thought that being mentioned when it looked like DJ might be somebody that's going to be a top 10 pick after that Notre Dame game a couple years ago. I feel like that's just the kind of thing where I'm glad I know Bruce, and I'm presenting it as more than just a nugget.
Right. And I think that they're basically going to go with DJ. And if he has one bad half or something like that, they have an option now that they can throw in there that could, quote unquote, save their season. But I'm a little higher on DJ than a lot of people just because Clemson's team last year was so bad on the offensive side of the ball. They were so bad, and that offensive line was bad, and they couldn't run the ball. I don't even think they had a yard against Georgia, which obviously Georgia was incredible defense last year, generational defense. But to think that Clemson had such a down year and they ended up winning 10 games is pretty crazy and speaks to what Dabo, that's when you've made it, is that your down years are now 10 wins. And it's like everything goes wrong and you don't have your like powerhouse team. It's like Alabama last year. Alabama was, at times people were talking about how they were in a rebuilding year and they went to the national championship game. Like that's when you get to as a program, you've stacked on so much talent that even your down years are like years that every other team would dream